Please take your seats. We're about to start in 1 minute. Let's see if I can bring it a bit closer. Okay, everyone, welcome to OWASP London chapter. Good to see you all here. We are live streaming this event on our YouTube channel, which is OWASP London. And of course, we're here at TikTok. Great to see you all. See more people still arriving, which is great. If you haven't had the chance to grab a food and drink, it's over there on the side. And for toilets, we have to go back to the lifts, but I'm going to ask our host to mention that again. My name is Stepanyan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm OWASP London chapter leader. We have two other co-leaders of OWASP London chapter. We have Andra with us here. Andra, you want to wave your hand? She's at the back there. And we have Sharif. Sharif, unfortunately, cannot be here because he's offsite today, but he will be at our next meetup. If you're going to tweet about tonight's event, please use hashtag OWASP London and mention us using OWASP London Twitter or X, as Elon Musk now calls it. So quick agenda for tonight. First, I'm going to do this intro. I'm going to tell you a bit about OWASP and some new and cool conferences and projects. And then we're going to have Ashish showing us how to do AWS security using ChatGPT and apparently 10x our AWS security skills. Then we're going to have Q&A with Ashish, and we're going to have a little break. And then we're going to have Prabhu talking about a brand new OWASP project called OWASP depscan, which is the software composition analysis tool that is built to forget. Then we're going to have another Q&A with Prabhu, and then there's going to be an after party. We're all going to go to the pub, which is right around the corner, called Smith's of Smithfield. Okay, so who is here for the first time? Raise your hand. Wow, excellent. So well done, you managed to find us. To make sure that you find out about our next event, you need to follow us, and you can do it in multiple ways. You can visit our webpage and make sure you sign up to our mailing list there. There's a link. Of course, follow us on Twitter. We're OWASP London. Like us on Facebook. You can also, of course, sign up to us on Meetup, Eventbrite, LinkedIn as well. And we're OWASP London everywhere. Of course, on YouTube, we're live streaming on our OWASP London YouTube channel. All the previous events are recorded, and all the talks are available on our YouTube channel. Please do subscribe to make sure you don't miss when the next video is published. And we also have OWASP Slack, which is obviously our virtual community, where you can ask questions and collaborate on OWASP projects. We have a channel called Chapter London. If you want to join OWASP Slack, you just go to owasp.org/slack/invite and type your email address to get yourself a Slack invite. So for those of you who don't know what OWASP is, I'm going to play a little video. Hopefully the audio will work through the screen sharing and live.
OWASP is a nonprofit that stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. OWASP is a community of developers, technologists, and evangelists improving the security of software through tools and resources. OWASP has 100+ active projects, and new project applications are submitted weekly. Projects are open source and are built by our community of volunteers, people just like you. Community and networking. There are hundreds of local chapters worldwide and thousands of members. Meetings are free and open to everyone. They include training, talks, and networking opportunities. Education and training. OWASP hosts many events each year. They are a great way to improve your skills, build your professional network, and learn about new trends in the industry. One of the many ways you can get involved is to become a member. The membership benefits include discounts for events and trainings, your own OWASP email address and Google Workspace access, a vote in our OWASP Global Board elections. And recently, OWASP added a brand new member benefit, access to hands-on application security training through the OWASP Secure Flag Open Platform. Join us and become a member today.
Excellent. All right. I think I need to skip through a slide because otherwise it's going to play the video again. Right. So some benefits were mentioned. So obviously Secure Flag was mentioned. We have some other benefits available. So we have things like AppSec Phoenix platform available to you. There's a security journey training available. And there is a SaaS-based encryption platform called Ubiq that you can use as well. We are working on adding more benefits all the time, but obviously being an OWASP member entitles you to a lot of cool things, including, of course, voting and lots of discounts. Now, OWASP membership currently costs $50 per year for individuals. If you're a student, it only costs $20 per year. If you represent companies, your company would like to become an OWASP corporate sponsor, you can find out how to do it on our website. That is also encouraged because then that will basically highlight your company's dedication in supporting open source application security community. If you want to become a member, if you're not a member yet, you can just go to owasp.org/membership, or if you just go to owasp.org and click on the join button, that's how you will be able to become a member. Of course, the benefits of OWASP membership has already been highlighted, but there's one extra perk which I usually give out because I have a secret stash of stickers that I kept from, I think, 2016 conference, and you get this cool laptop sticker from me, which you cannot get anywhere else. This is, of course, the list of all the corporate supporters. So if your company would like to sponsor OWASP, more than welcome to join. Now, in terms of corporate support, OWASP London has its own corporate supporters, which support specifically us as OWASP London. You can see the list on the screen, and of course, you can join that growing list of sponsors. And if you have a space like this one, right, in your organization and would like to host our event, please do come and approach me, because this is exactly what happened to me at one of our last meetups. Because after the meetup, a guy approached me and said, Sam, my name is Vlad, and I'm head of offensive security at TikTok, and we would like to host you. And this is why we're here. So I'd like to invite Vlad on stage and say a couple of words about TikTok and cyber defenses at TikTok. Welcome, Vlad.
Cheers. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, thanks a lot for coming. Thanks, Sam, for organizing the great community, really. And yeah, just tell a few words that we at TikTok obviously have a security team. We have an AppSec team. We have a offensive security team. We have a threat detection response team, a blue team in a very wide sense. So please come join us. There's a QR code with our openings and also my personal LinkedIn, so you can take a photo and your manager wouldn't know that you want to apply. Yeah, just thanks all for joining and hope you enjoy. One little note, the restrooms are, you have to go this way, and our great security people will show you the way. But yeah, hope you'll find anything. If you have any issues, just let me know. I'll help you find them, something. So yeah, thanks a lot, and enjoy.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, for those of you who are members, don't forget there is a membership portal, and this is how you can find out about all the benefits, and it's members.owasp.org. And obviously, I showed you a sticker before, right? That's a physical sticker, but there's another benefit that I started giving people, and that's a digital sticker or an NFT. So everyone who is here tonight, you're entitled to come up to me and scan a code from my phone, which proves that you were actually here and you've seen me, and you will get a little NFT. There's a type of NFT which is called Proof of Attendance Protocol, or POAP. And if you have a crypto wallet, obviously that NFT will be transferred to your crypto wallet, and that will stay as a digital sticker and memorabilia that you were here tonight. If you don't have a wallet, you can use something like Coinbase Wallet or Trust Wallet applications to download. And if you don't know how to use them, come up to me and I'll make sure you get your NFT. And there are actually quite a few of those, as you can see. It's like Pokemon. You have to catch them all. So we already have 7 of them issued. As you can see, some of them have different pictures. These are the ones from our Capture the Flag events, or secure coding tournaments. They have unique pictures. The other cool thing about the NFTs is that we planning to create what is called gated events. So someone who attended several of our events and they can show their wallet with several of these NFTs, we can then open them up to some other events. For example, we're going to invite CISOs of some big companies and invite them to the panel discussions or fundraising dinners. So there's another benefit and perk in collecting these NFTs. We have a merchandise store at owasp.org.store, so you can buy things. It's open worldwide. The prices include donation to OWASP. So if you would like to get a hoodie, a t-shirt, a baseball cap, or anything available in store, you can go and get it there. A little bit personal update, because as you know, there was a board election, and I'm happy to report that actually OWASP members voted for me, so I'm going to be one of the OWASP board members starting from January 1st. So thank you very much, everyone who voted for me, and I think we have the outgoing OWASP board member, Grant August, in the audience, so we need to thank him for 4 years of serving on board. Other people elected with me were Steve Springett. If you don't know who Steve Springett is, he is the guy behind Cyclone DX and SBOM standards. So he's basically a godfather of Cyclone DX. Kevin Johnson is an OWASP chapter leader in Florida. Avi got reelected, and he, of course, is an OWASP chapter leader in Israel. So again, a big thank you to everyone who voted. Now, news, conferences. So next week, there is a free whole-day conference. Actually, it's a 2-day conference, 1 day of talks, and the second day is presentations. It's going to be in Belgium. So if you want to fly to Belgium next week, next Thursday and Friday, there's going to be a great day of talks on Thursday and a great day of trainings on Friday. It's just OWASP.BE, so you can just go and OWASPbenelux.eu, sorry, the URL. You can scan the QR code. If you are interested in attending this, if you represent the company, if you want to send your developers, your security team to that conference, I highly encourage you to do it because I know it's going to be absolutely awesome. And then another big awesome conference coming up next year is going to be OWASP Global AppSec Lisbon. It's going to be in June, and I'm happy to announce that early bird registrations are now open. If you would like to sponsor the conference and be an exhibitor there, you have a booth. There will be an exhibitor pack available soon. So for those of you who know some of the audience are actually OWASP sponsors and the exhibitors, the sponsor pack is coming soon. So just to check the website, it's going to be there. And for those of you who want to speak at that conference, call for papers will open on February 20th. Now, obviously, OWASP is known for its projects. We have more than 250 projects covering all aspects of application security, mobile security, cloud security, even AI security. And speaking of AI security, of course, we have probably the hottest topic of the hour is, of course, AI. And there's an OWASP top 10 for large language models. That project is now live, so this top 10 is now available. So if you're trying to implement AI in your organization, and you are thinking about what are the security implications of this, right? So check out the top 10 risks that OWASP has put together for you because it's already been done. And another cool project which just been announced, this is from the software bill of material point of view, and of course, from the SCA perspective, there's a BOM maturity model. You know, there's different maturity models available. So we have, for example, SAM, we have DSOM, but this is specific bill of materials maturity model. Also new, and again, I'm sharing the QR code that you can scan and check out this new awesome project as well. And a reminder that all OWASP projects are free and open source. So they're open to contribute, and obviously all contributions are welcome. Now, before we go into the speakers tonight, because there's quite a lot of you. If you have questions during the presentation and want to ask something, please take out your mobile phone, go to slide.do/OWASP, and then put the question in there. That will make things easier. But of course, we'll also be taking questions in the audience using the microphones, but we will also read them out from the Slido screen. Okay, now let me see if Ashish is ready. Ashish Rajan is an amazing guy. So I've been following him for a long, long time, and because obviously he's the host of Cloud Security Podcast. I don't know, there are probably hundreds and hundreds of episodes that he recorded, but I knew the guy is from Australia. And then one day he just shows up in London. He says, Sam, I'm now in London. Like, this is great. You have to come and speak at OWASP London. So here he is. Ashish, welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
Right. I'm going to stop sharing. Stop share, and I'll also stop my camera.
So does that make me the host?
You should be a co-host now. Right, let me see. Let me see if I can move my laptop further down there because it's streaming. Okay. Can you share your screen?
Sweet.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much for that, Sam. Hello. Out of curiosity, how many people over here are from cloud security? Just raise your hand. Oh, awesome. Cool. This is perfect audience for that. Anyone from AppSec, application security? Oh, oh wow. So, okay. Clearly we're OWASP, so I'm not surprised there. Any developers? Oh, awesome. You guys can totally judge me for at the end of the presentation, by the way, as to how good I do or how bad I do. But I do want to start by saying I have a secret, which I would love for you to remind me towards the end of the presentation if I do not talk about it. So this is not to keep you hooked on till the end, but just to kind of call it out. There is a secret as I go through this. Hopefully it reveals itself. If it doesn't, please remind me, and so I can let you know, so that you don't tell anyone apart from people on the live stream, obviously. Hopefully no one shares that anywhere. If I can move this. Sweet. Awesome. So thank you for, I guess, clarifying how many people are here from CloudSec and our AppSec, as well as developers as well. So for majority developers, it's probably, I would say, targeted a lot more for developers as well as the AppSec folks. Having spoken about cloud security for the past 4 years on Cloud Security Podcast, I think we have about 1.5 million downloads as of yesterday. So I guess we're ranked top 100 in the US, UK. It's a popular podcast, let's just say that. One of the things we kind of came out of it was at the beginning of 2023, it became almost like a little space in the tech world where a lot of people became transitioned from the system admin side or network security side onto the cloud security. So kind of lost our developers and AppSec people somewhere in the mix of it. So my hope is at the end of this, you should at least be able to at least walk away thinking, okay, I don't have to be as smart as a cloud security person, but I can be just enough dangerous that I can do a great job. So for people who haven't known much about AWS, I doubt people do not know what AWS is. Is there anyone who doesn't know what AWS is? Oh, thank God. I was like, do I have to explain what AWS is? That'll be interesting if AWS hasn't done a great brand recognition job here. But essentially, a lot of people use AWS these days from an infrastructure perspective. They are the market leader at the moment, still after 8 years, 9 years. I got into the field 7 years ago. That was back in Australia. I've been in London for about 7 months now, and I think it still seems to be Azure, AWS are still the two leading cloud service providers at the moment. So the reason I picked AWS because them being still the largest, as a developer or as an AppSec person, it's more likely that you would find the resources for AWS very easily. Also, the fact that they are the largest, if you are looking for a job, it's probably easier to talk about the fact that I have AWS skills that you can bring to the job as well. So from that perspective, that's the reason I picked AWS and not Azure or GCP. There is a lot of services provided by AWS, and 200 is probably less than what I would say what the actual number is, especially for people who are looking forward to AWS reInvent, which is their annual event I think in a couple of weeks. There's going to be 200 more that will come out of it. So I won't be surprised that number changes by the time this thing is actually making anywhere on the internet. So with that said, what are some of the security things, at least cloud security people talk about, and what we share in the lunch and learn that we do with teams that we work with, whether it's your application security team or trying to do quote-unquote DevSecOps. I'm sure people love DevSecOps over here. Everyone has their own definition. Cloud security people have their own definition as well, fortunately for us. But the crux of it, and so to simplify it for anyone who probably is not even from the security field, is just three things. Like, as organizations, we care about the data. We care about customer data, we care about employee data, We care about data that we are sharing with a third party, like a Salesforce, Workday, or any other popular SaaS application that you might see there. That's kind of like the core of what we speak about usually. Now, from a security perspective, another thing you also notice is that, so I'm just trying to keep my timer on, so if I'll have to talk so I can keep going. So I just want to make sure there's a timer there. There's another timer here as well. The second thing we talk about is usually compliance. And this is not for everyone. This is probably for companies which you find are traditionally in a regulated industry, whether it's your fintech or whether it's organizations that are primarily driven. Say, for example, the energy sector has their own standard. And any company which is trying to work with a financial organization, which is HSBC or even Monzo or any of the newer banks, they all have to go through regulatory compliance, even if they might not be an actual bank in a lot of traditional definition of a bank. That's the second thing most people care about. And that's what you would hear a lot of cloud security people talk about. Now, the third one, this is probably the biggest overlap you would find when you interact with a security architect, solution architect, or even from an engineering perspective. Cloud architecture is probably the most common area that you would hear a lot of people talk about cloud security. The two big roles that people have in a cloud context is either you're building a solution that has a predefined blueprint for how do you do it securely, which is how the Netflix of the world do it. We've been fortunate enough to have interviewed people from Robinhood, Netflix, LinkedIn, and others who are probably leading the charge in how cloud security done at scales of, we're talking like, I think one of the folks that I spoke to, they had about 20,000 Lambda functions. Now, Lambda is like a serverless function that's used in AWS. They had all three cloud providers, which is the AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, private cloud, as well as your mini cloud, if you want to use that word, for people who thought they can make a cloud themselves, but then they realized actually this is too difficult, but the application still remained there. So from an architecture perspective, you'll definitely find that that definitely is probably the biggest area you would get more involved as a developer or as an AppSec person. A lot of people have started calling it product security as well, where cloud security and AppSec comes together, works with the developers who are building a feature or an application to work on what's called a threat model in our world. For people who are from the development world, they probably would have done one. If you haven't done one, you should look into one. It's a great idea to do a threat modeling for the application that you have. But the biggest thing, which not a lot of people talk about, is the AWS shared responsibility model. And I think, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but 7 years ago when I started working in the cloud security space, doesn't sound like a long time, but in the cloud world, I'm kind of feel it's such a long time that so many more services have come through. One thing that still remains confusing for a lot of people is the shared responsibility model. By that, what I mean is, we are in this building at the moment in TikTok, so TikTok has kind of taken the shared responsibility that, okay, we'll make sure that there is food available, people are secure, there's toilets available, even though it may be completely, I don't know where that toilet was, but wherever that was. The idea being they've taken the responsibility for, we'll make sure that it's a great event for everyone. Now, there's responsibility on Sam, me, and the other speakers to make sure that you guys walk away from here learning something. And hopefully, you guys have some responsibility as well to interact with people around you and get some value out of it as well, and hopefully not just eat the food and walk away. So, but the point being, all of us have responsibilities in the cloud service provider context as well. There are certain things that they would take care of. They would walk in and say, okay, from a physical infrastructure perspective, I can take care of these things if you use these services. And you only have to care about the fact that what size of a server do you need, what kind of application do you need, and what kind of application are you building, what connections would it have. This is as simple as said, the three things that I was talking about. The architecture piece, this is where it becomes important, where if you're using something like a platform as a service, the responsibility of your, I guess, solution architect, security architect is limited to the fact that, okay, if I'm using a platform as a service, AWS takes care of my database infrastructure. They take care of rotating it when it needs to be updated. I don't know if there's DB admins here, so they might judge me for what I'm about to say this. But the point being, they take a lot more of the configuration responsibility for how do you manage that infrastructure. As a developer, you may not have to get involved apart from the fact that I have an API connection that I need to a database. I don't really care what happens after that. As a security person, we might come and say, make sure the secure connection. It wasn't me. Yeah, this is probably the alarm light. Stop talking, I guess. Could be a traffic light. Well, it stopped, so I'm hoping we're good. Oh, dishwasher alarm, fair enough. That's a pretty solid dishwasher alarm. It's like walking into FBI building. It's like, okay, so the shared responsibility model for a PaaS service, as a developer, you might care about the endpoint. From a security perspective, what we might call out is the three things again: encryption of data at rest and in transit, so making sure the endpoint is HTTPS, you're using data at rest. The second one being, oh, you understand the responsibility for the data that you're putting in is what you want it to be putting in. Another layer, which I would probably add from an architecture perspective, is that it is in the region that you want to operate in. There is a thing called, yes, there's a new service which is only available for some reason in the US East region. Doesn't mean you have to create the service in the US East region. You just have to make sure that you are in the region that you're supposed to be working in, which is where the compliance piece comes in. So thinking more from that perspective is how you would say that a lot of interaction with cloud security, application security kind of starts overlapping a bit as you build the organization as well. Welcome. So I don't want to give a whole list. I'm sure there's people out there who can have top 10 because OWASP loves top 10. I don't want to give top 4. So top 4 is the secure access management. Now, identity has been called out probably the most important thing anyone can think of. I was on a call yesterday with a top, I think they call the top 100 in America, like one of those, like FTSE 500. There's a similar in the US as well. And we were talking about how identity is kind of so complex in a world of cloud. Earlier, as long as I know Ashish's username and password, I can manage his credentials wherever. I can do single sign-on. These days, I could have something called an AWS IAM user, which is completely different to my corporate credential. And many folks don't have an idea that, hey, there's actually an IAM user, which is a local user to AWS, which I can basically sit over here, go onto console, and still log in my, I don't want to use TikTok as an example. Let's just say Instagram. Hopefully, there's no fights over here for that. But let's just say Instagram console or whatever. And I log in over there, and I can still do and access everything that I would have with my corporate credential. That's how dangerous it could be if you don't know that, hey, by the way, I don't want to leave a local user there. Another where it becomes a bit more complex is that all cloud services don't give you everything, which means that they would say, by the way, if you come and work on our services, we give you infrastructure, we give you platform. But what they don't tell you is that they don't have what's the right word for it? They say security is important, but they would not say security is default, which is one would assume. Like, they're doing three things about this next year. But for example, if I want to have MFA, I have to make sure I switch on an MFA. It is not enforced. But the number one recommendation everywhere is switch on MFA. It's like, that's their console, they could just turn it on, but hey, I'm not going to judge. Same for encryption as well. It's just a tick of a button, but somehow we still have to click on it just to say, yes, please encrypt this. So things like that is what you would probably hear a lot of cloud security people talk about. With that said, there is tooling available in AWS for you to work on. It's not that there is nothing. They do provide you IAM service, which is what I was referring to as IAM user. But what you would find, if you are, depending on the size of the organization you're working with, the organization which are fairly large and regulated would use some kind of a single sign-on service to authenticate user that is going to IAM. But you could be a small organization, a startup that's working on seeing, hi, I want to use AWS to see what happens. You can use IAM user, the local users that I was referring to. So there is a use case for it. It's a feature in that context. But also it's vulnerability in the context of an enterprise as well. So just knowing where you draw the line for shared responsibility is important. Now, KMS is the key management service for encryption that you might use with them. They have a key management service. You don't have to rely on your sometimes slow on-premise services. You can actually use the ones which are available from them. The advantage being it is native. So if you're a developer who's probably responsible for building applications that need to have data encrypted, you can find that the services that you use in AWS would have an easy integration. For the hardcore, the one or two cloud security people over here that I represent, the AWS Inspector is probably your favorite tool from that perspective. It's the vulnerability management for any images that you might be using in the cloud context. AWS Config is a friend of an auditor. I don't think there were any auditors here. Any auditors? Oh. You're standing out already with the orange. I love the band. So for auditors, there's a service called AWS Config as well, which you can use to record the inventory that you may have in an AWS context, and just to see as to, has it changed? Because the number one thing people complain about in an AWS context is that they don't have enough visibility. Now, well, this is kind of conclusion one is what I would call it. I won't say the conclusion yet. This is conclusion one, because I haven't really 10x you yet. This is just catching up with what normal is. So I'm sure I'm getting a few nods already that I haven't 10x anything yet. This is just basically leveling up the playing field for people to at least understand what I'm going to talk about after this. So key 3 points: compliance, make sure data is encrypted, and work with the architecture in a way that it makes sense. Defense in depth, you can take whatever words you like. Prioritizing security in the beginning. I don't have to tell you guys, your AppSec folks, OWASP has been talking about this for a long time, so it's kind of given. Collaboration is probably the one that we kind of miss out on most times, where we just don't talk to each other about it, so I'll say that. All right, with that said, let's 10x this. I don't know how many people have been using ChatGPT here. Any folks? Oh, wow, everyone. Oh, wow, okay. Has everyone seen the announcement that came in like a couple of days ago? Did you guys see that? Oh, quite a few, awesome. Well, essentially, for people who did not attend, it's basically they have their Dev Day conference. As part of that, they announced something called a custom agent. They announced a few more things. They have their own version of App Store, but instead of apps, they have something called custom agents, which you can define. So this talk was inspired by a YouTube video that we had released around how can developers 10x their knowledge about AWS security. That was I guess, now outdated version of ChatGPT. So this is an updated version of ChatGPT from that perspective. And what it is essentially an AI agent which you can create with no coding knowledge, like absolutely. All the power to developers for knowing coding. I'm not a coder, but this was like, it took me 2 hours to build, I guess, this. I made a Cloud Guardian. It took me 2 hours to make this with zero coding. The part of it was, by the way, just want to put the pitch out there as well. It's an AI cybersecurity assistant with deep knowledge for cloud security in public and hybrid cloud environments. Now, that's all well and great. I probably want to show you in this, what does it even look like? Mind you, I only gave 2 hours to this, so if it gives you a bad response, please don't kill me for it. So this is kind of what it looks. Oh, perfect, it comes in. So I don't think I can maximize this. But anyway, hopefully people can see it. Perfect. Yeah, might as well do that. Oh. Sorry, just increasing the phone. Yeah, that's what I was trying. Oh, there you go. Took me a while. Worked finally. Cool, awesome. So obviously, I've got default questions that I can define. How do I secure an application? Now, something you might notice if I ask for best practice, you can ask anything. Azure, AWS, GCP, not private cloud yet, but Azure, AWS, GCP. It is on the GPT-4 version. I wonder if it says the same thing that I did in the slides. Oh, so far so good. Oh, okay. I didn't mention network security. I'll give it that one. Well, technically, I stopped at 3, so these guys are going all the way till 7, 8. This is turning out to be a top 10 now. It's just, I think it's an homage to AWS. Oh my God, 11 is well. Okay, cool. Finally, it stopped. It did. Now, but the point being, this is available for people to kind of at least start thinking about. If you have no idea about what AWS security should be like, at least this gives you a good starting point to go, okay, at least I know what the security service is. But is this good enough? We haven't really 10x anything yet, right? We want to be able to build something. So let's just say, can you give me, oh, actually, someone told me about a service called CloudFormation. So let's just talk about what is CloudFormation. It should still talk in the context of AWS, and unless there's another service called CloudFormation. Oh, it did pick up AWS CloudFormation. So someone told me in this meetup over here, you should use CloudFormation. Just as simple as that. Now, I do want to put a caveat on this. What you would find, outside of the whole hallucination thing that you've been hearing about for ChatGPT, what you would find, at least for this form of descriptive information, it still does a decent job. When you start asking factual questions, say, after this, what I was going to do was ask for a CloudFormation template to build a virtual machine in AWS using CloudFormation template, whenever it stops, it's like giving top 10 every time. Yeah, it knows it's an OWASP meetup, clearly. Oh, fortunately, 8 stops. All right, so clearly, I found out, someone told me in the security team I should learn about CloudFormation. So I'm like, okay, now I understand what CloudFormation is, but I've never written one. So how am I going to go about doing this? Okay, so can you give me a CloudFormation template for one virtual machine that talks to a database? I've just put it as simple as possible. I have not called out any service, nothing. Hopefully this works. It worked last night. So it does know Amazon EC2 instance, which is a virtual machine. Oh, it talks about the YAML format. I hate the description part. I just don't know why it tries to explain. Like, sometimes it does feel like mansplaining something. So as it kind of prints all of that, just want to call out, for people who probably have worked with AWS, you probably would notice it's fairly familiar. There's a copy code option if you want to go and just paste it out. But what you would find, and this is kind of where a lot of security people get worried, is that you have your key pair. It doesn't talk about the fact that it's a resource. So you have to hard code your key pair in a way. It's kind of not a good thing, right? You probably want to have it as a parameter. But what we can tell it, so if I don't like that, and hopefully it finished kind of. Okay, so let me just describe it for people who have never seen a CloudFormation template. Essentially, it's like how people have done Bash script or PowerShell. You kind of have like a thing in the beginning. That's like a standard for CloudFormation. It's just required every single time. Description is the same as any description. Resources is what you define as, hey, this is what I want you to create as part of the template. I'm saying I need an EC2 instance. This is the tag for it. This is the image. Again, I've hard-coded the image. Instance type is basically how powerful the machine needs to be. And key name is what is going to be my key or my username password to log into it. This is security group now, I know what a security group is, but you may not. So you could just basically go, what is security group? And it'll tell you what it is, but I'll just give you a TLDR version. It's essentially their firewall, like a software firewall. You can say that I want access from port 22 to port 8080. Now, again, you probably don't want everyone on the internet to have access to it. Fortunately, it hasn't given it a public IP. No, there's no public IP, so that's good. Okay, and my database that I called out earlier. Now, there's another firewall rule for the database itself, or for the EC2. Now, I could technically copy this and put it in AWS, and it has worked for me. So I've done this in the past, it does work. But I clearly am not happy with it because it's not secure enough. So I'm just going to say, can this follow security best practices that you called out earlier? So hopefully, it does a decent job. Yes, keep going. But essentially, what you've done now, in a matter of less than 2 minutes, we have a CloudFormation template, which potentially is, once it finishes, is at least using security best practices that you can use as a starting point. This may not be the best version, but at least it still screwed up the 000, but hey, we'll get to that. It's still a work in progress. But the point being, you are able to create templates which are semi-decent from zero to nothing, like from absolutely nothing, not knowing what security best practices, not knowing what security group or CloudFormation template. From there, you can go all the way to, and it kind of does an explanation of what it has enhanced. Oh, there you go. It talks about what you should do. That's a good thing. It's probably not the best way because you just need to figure out where do you put that in. But this is still, from my perspective, from the fact that I did not know anything. Now I've gone from there to I have a CloudFormation template ready. Now, I did say it took me 2 hours to create this. So there isn't a lot of training data that I could provide to it, which is kind of where I'm hoping you guys can help me with it as well. So what I've done is I created a repository on GitHub. If again, just plus it again. So the training data that I've used, so as Sam was saying earlier, Cloud Security Podcast has been running for 4 years. We have over almost 200 episodes where we've spoken to people like Netflix, LinkedIn, and a lot of other places. All those interviews are basically in a transcript that is available publicly. You can either go through all the interviews yourself, all 200 of them, or you could just do what I did, which is basically provide us the trained data. I only have season 3, season 4, because it's taking a long time, so I was like, okay, I'll come back to this. But the point being, the transcript for those episodes from our YouTube are all available here. And it's basically, that's what's being used in the background. I think I can show you what it looks like in the background as well. So, edit GPT. So that's basically the files being uploaded over there. Those are the same files that I have here as well. But the point being, at least in my mind, as I keep doing more interviews and I keep sharing it, it's collecting information from different companies around the world, and it's starting to learn the fact that, oh, okay, this is how Netflix does it, this is how LinkedIn does it. So if someone uses it and asks a question around it, they should hopefully get an information which is a collective understanding of this is how all the people have done, and this is how we should apply it. Now, in saying that, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and other cloud service providers, they would continue to evolve. This does not have information about what would reInvent have. So the challenge then becomes that I have to upload white papers, or at least something which I trust from the cloud service providers here as well. Because the information that, say, I may share may be as good as what I know right now. But right now, as we speak, someone just did something amazing. It's not, for some reason, we did not find them on Cloud Security Podcast, and we never interviewed them. What happens to all that information? But this kind of becomes like that trained data. My hope is, and folks can contribute into it as well. Just kind of want to come back to this. Yeah, so as of now, this is not the one. Oh, sweet. Actually, this is worthwhile calling this out as well. So what you saw just now, what I created in 2 hours, for people who have used GitHub Actions, this is literally the same thing. There is something called AI Actions that they have also opened up as part of this. What that means is I can integrate that with 10,000 plus services on the internet. Like literally what you saw just now, which is just me providing my trained data, you can integrate that with AWS services to say that every time someone fills out a form on self-service for security that I need a CloudFormation template, it triggers a Lambda function to create a CloudFormation template and send that over to the person. Like, that's one of the possibilities. You could have one for your team. So they have integration for GitHub, GitLab, AWS, some services of AWS, some services of Azure, nothing for Google Cloud, unfortunately. I think from what I saw, there was a TikTok one as well, considering this was TikTok, so I thought I should put something TikTok in there. There was a TikTok conversion. I don't know what that's used for, but clearly something important. But the point being, you can use this for enhancing and enabling you to do, okay, I have an issue, I just want to create a Jira ticket for it, you can do that over here, or an Asana ticket, or whatever else you use. This opened up the door for the possibility that I don't have to restrict myself to the fact that, oh, I just have my trained data of all the real people with the real experience I've shared with me. I can also hook up into AWS to go, I can probably have some kind of an online tutorial at the end of it. This is a video gets uploaded a certain place, people who have access to it. I mean, possibilities are endless. But what you can do, you can use this in your organization as well, if you feel comfortable and if your security team allows for it. You can explore this for what this may look like for your organization. I think I've spoken to a lot of people over here over the past 7 months who are already using ChatGPT in their organization, so it's not like a big leap to ask for, hey, can we add another space onto it? This is me as a security person saying, as I say this, I am a bit nervous as I say it, so that, oh, what am I opening up myself to? I don't know, like 10,000 integrations to what? So it is easy to train, but obviously I would like your help with this something as well. That I don't trust myself to kind of do the right thing always, but I'm hoping others who are interested in using this can go to the GitHub repository, provide their trained data, and we can use that as a way to at least start giving right information, to at least the right training information to the AI agent. Now, this doesn't have to stop here. Oh, sorry, I haven't mentioned the secret. No one reminded me of the secret. Come on, guys. So this is like I kept going. I didn't even realize. So the secret that I wanted to share is this can also help you with something else. If you don't have many presentation skills, and if you only have sometimes half an hour to prepare for a OWASP London chapter meetup, you can you can use capabilities to produce slides. Now, I will let you decide, and you can let me know later on if you connect with me on LinkedIn or something, which part of the slide was AI generated and which part did I create. Did anyone pick up on which ones were AI generated? Oh, someone did.
The ones that were blank at the very beginning.
Oh! These ones?
Yeah.
Well, pretty good, man. This is clearly you used it. But do you know what service that I use for it? Okay, cool. I'll leave that as a secret for everyone else to find out. But at least one part of it mystery is solved. So you can clear at least I wanted to leave some Easter egg, so it's not that difficult. Plus, I could not find the format for it as well. So the first conclusion that came in, and this kind of switched over, I could not find the same format. So I'm like, okay, I need to do something here. So this is the best Google slide version I could find. But that was one secret that was out, which you can use as a developer if you like. The other one, which is what service did I use, I'll let you guys find out. But hopefully that 10x is not just your AWS security skills, but your presentation skills as well. That you can, if you don't know where to start for, I don't know, an OWASP London meet, I'm sure they'll be happy to kind of have more speakers come over and talk. You can come over to Cloud Security London Meetup as well, which we run, which Sam attends as well. We'd love to have you guys. But the point being, not just 10x your AWS skills, Azure skills, GCP skills, but your regular presentation skills if you just don't have an idea where to start. Because a lot of times you get people saying, oh, I don't know, what can I present on? You can use this. I did it, so I'm sure you guys can do it as well. But that's pretty much what I wanted to present on. Any questions at this point in time? Yeah. No questions, everyone knows ChatGPT? Perfect.
Okay, we do have one question on Slido. That was, what challenges did you face when you were preparing Cloud Guardian?
Oh, right.
What were the challenges?
I guess the first one being, so they did update the data to be as recent as April 2023. The hardest part was I had to call out, does it need to be friendly? Does it need to be professional? Like, what kind of responses am I giving? And I also had to call out that it should not give any medical or legal advice, because then that kind of puts you in the category of like, I don't want to be responsible for someone, I don't know, just using it for, do I have backache? I don't know what that is. I don't know, it could be a mole. But so I didn't want to get into that territory. So I had to, and this is obviously, I did some research around what's the boundary that I need to have. So having an understanding of what that boundary needs to be was a good one, which may be different if you work in the medical field. The other one that I had to call out was what kind of nature would the person have? Would it be fully professional? Because think about this from a community perspective. You want it to be professional, but at the same time friendly enough that it doesn't sound like adversarial when it's giving you an answer that you should use this CloudFormation template, otherwise this is not the right way or something. So like thinking about what the person, it's like naming a child or writing a story. It's like, what's the personality that you want this person to have? So that was difficult because I had to come up with the right word. Actually, logo was created by that as well. I didn't create the logo. That logo is by...
AI.
Yeah, what's their tool?
DALL-E?
DALL-E, yes. So DALL-E is integrated into this as well. So DALL-E created that. I'm actually going to use it for other things as well. So why not? It looked pretty good. So I had to call out, what do I want my cloud logo to look like? Friendly eyes was a thing, and apparently that seems to capture a lot of attention because the first version looked like a machine with a cloud. I'm like, that is not what I want the things to be. So yeah, it definitely has. That took a while as well. That's probably where I spent half an hour trying to figure out what that looked like. So I kept describing different eye shapes. Does it have a hand? Does it not have a hand? But the actual setup of it was, I would probably say, less than 15 minutes. Like, that's how long it took me to just decide, this is what I want, this is what the nature needs to be, and I was just live. Now, I have not made it, I guess, available on their app store. You may choose to make it available on their app store. I think you get money for it as well if you can have enough usage of it, maybe present it, whatever, at meetups if you want. I haven't done it. I just kept it as a link because I don't trust it enough yet. I haven't provided it enough data to go, oh, you can start using it. I don't personally feel comfortable, so that's why I kept it as a link. So people can use the link, which is available, and test it out, maybe get some trained data for it. But there is an option for you to kind of make it available on their app store, and I don't know, tweet about it, and people start using it, you start making money from it as well. But that's, being security comes with a risk, so you don't probably want to give bad advice, especially no legal, medical, but at the same time, cybersecurity is another one. Hopefully, no one in a big enough organization that has a lot of responsibility uses the advice that's provided, so call that out as well. But hopefully that answers the question.
So as a continuation, and since you mentioned the regional versions of the graphic weren't to your satisfaction, I have a question. What was the most outrageous hallucination you've seen from it?
Oh, wow. The outrageous one, I think the one that came out to me was when I asked for the best practice for the first time. It named a service which I thought I had not seen before. And I'm like, I don't think there is a service like this. The thing is, I didn't save a history for it because this doesn't save a history. So I couldn't go back to it. By then, it was already 2 a.m. in the night. I was just like, this is clearly me hallucinating rather than the thing hallucinating. So I just switched off and walked away. I couldn't recreate that thing. So there was one, but I'm not sure if it was me or if it was this.
Oh, I see. So it's something, it created something which doesn't exist in the cloud
That's
formation
right.
language.
Yeah, yeah. So
This
it
is
kind of
very
like,
different.
because there's definitely conversations that we had around so there was a joke in the AWS world, I think last year or year before, where Virgil, who's the CTO of AWS, they kind of released a series of tweets about a service that does not exist. But it's like a whole thing about it. Every popular person in the cloud space, cloud security space, started posting about it. And I think we spoke about it in the podcast. And I don't know if that's where it got it from, but it was just like, why is it talking about that service? That's why it's like, I'm not sure, but that's kind of where, because I gave it the trained data, and I'm like, maybe it was that. So I don't know. This is the short answer, whether I should trust myself or the trained data in that, but that was the weirdest thing that I saw.
Excellent. Any more questions from the audience? Yeah,
There's
first one.
Well, a couple. There's one there.
Hi, I was wondering if you tried to give ChatGPT contradictory information and then ask him to detect if there is any contradiction.
Ooh, like what would be an example for contradicting? Yeah.
Like, just for example, like if you feed it training data that's incorrect, will it tell you that it's not right in security practices?
Yeah, actually, so for I guess people didn't have the mic, the contradictory part is if I give it wrong data, would it just learn the wrong data? Because I guess what I saw was kind of like the wrong data as well, because the service didn't exist. It technically did learn that and assumed it was the right service because that's what training data said.
So does it give you any like feedback in terms of your training data that it might be incorrect in any way? Or is it you just give it and it just takes it?
Basic, yeah. It's basically like you're almost, yeah, that's right. It's like a 4-year-old. Yeah, it's how people describe ChatGPT, where it's like a 4-year-old, you're trying to train them, feed them, probably take them for a walk.
And then just in terms of the training data, what types of media formats does it take? Is it just text-based only?
PDF, text-based, those are two that I've tried. I don't think it actually calls out. It doesn't really say. So this was I gave it an AWS HIPAA security architecture white paper. So it took PDF, it took text files. But actually, yeah, there was a limitation. So the reason I did not do all of the data was because I think every 5th file or 6th file, it would just show an error draft, and I couldn't understand what error draft is. And it would not upload the file either. Once it showed me error draft, I could not even save the agent. So I had to just go back to the drawing board, start again, as in not go back to recreating the thing, but for that fact, whatever the trained data at the moment is, I had to come back to that, start again, upload one file, see if it works. Oh, it worked. Okay, I try again. But I could not just give it like the entire folder in one go. So there's definitely some bandwidth limitation, or at least some form of file upload limitation there, because I imagine because there is a extra service that you can pay for. At least what they announced over there was that next year onwards they would have extra service for more tokens to be used. I don't know if that would make a difference, but hopefully that does. But yeah, apart from that, there's no feedback. Basically, here you go. This is what the world is. It just consumes it and shares it back with you. Oh, there's another question there.
More questions here.
Just a quick one. What training data would you like to train it on if you could just click your fingers and have it done? What like huge library?
I think the reason I picked up the Cloud Security podcast transcript was because I feel like the part which is missing in, say, if you're looking at AWS, Azure, GCP, their documentation, like if I look at AWS, it's always about, this is how you use AWS. How do I solve world peace? Oh, how do I get world peace? This is how you use AWS documentation. I'm like, no, but I kind of want a general answer. So I always felt that the cloud service providers don't give you, hey, you could use another service. You don't have to use us. That kind of unbiased view. which is why I started off with the, I guess, the transcript data for all the folks that we had interviewed, because that is general bias. We've never had someone give a sales pitch or anything on it. So I know that data would always be valuable, and they just shared their experience. We spoke about things like how do you hack into an AWS account? What's the pen testing like? What's vulnerability management? Like, all that without calling out that you should use, I don't know what service you would use, whatever service you want to use for it. We definitely, I trusted this data more. So if I could snap a finger, I would probably say more that kind of information. If I could just collectively get that from all of you, it would be amazing over here. But unfortunately, that's limitation at this point in time with 200 episodes.
So 2 questions. The first one is, you had to ask for a secure way when you brought up the CloudFormation template. Is there a way to make that default? So it chooses the secure way?
I tried. So, because obviously, if you look, so this is what the instruction looks like. Basically, I was talking about an approachable, trusted advisor, engaging, accessible, blah, blah. You kind of have to keep reiterating the version of how you want the agent to be. And I tried secure by default. It just didn't change anything, so I went back to what I was doing. So it's kind of hard to, I guess, the harder challenge is to know what prompt would trigger what you're trying to say, what you're trying to make it understand. Secure by default may mean different things. It could just become like a, I don't know, like a government building at that point in time where everything is just by default, which I'm sure all of us know it's not practical. Like, yes, as much as government would like to think it is practical, it's not practical. I think that's kind of where I struggled with it. So maybe better prompts to kind of explain what it's like would be a better way. But I couldn't get an answer for it, sorry.
My second question is, the logo stickers on that table?
Yes, definitely.
Next month?
Oh, no, it is. I would love to bring them stickers right now. It was 2 a.m., man. Like I want Amazon service for printing stickers straight away, because I'm definitely going to print those, because they look pretty cool. I'm like telling my wife this, I might have a bill next month. Sorry. Next month, yes. Sorry, yes, thank you.
Hi. Some people mentioned about the hallucination of this. Do you have any advice on how to protect from hallucination?
I think I would say hallucination is pretty much a real thing at this point in time that you cannot bypass. The reason, so a lot of the organizations, the way they've implemented ChatGPT is that they have a proxy in front of them. So you're not directly talking to ChatGPT, you have a proxy in between for 2 reasons. One is to identify you're not putting any corporate data in there or sensitive information there. So that's one way for them to make sure that, yes, we're allowing people to use ChatGPT, but we don't want them to put company documents in there. So one is to at least, even if there was data that would not, or hopefully should not be incorrect from a hallucination perspective, that, hey, Bob said my salary is, I don't know, 100,000 pounds, but actually the HR said something else. Something like that, that would not be the case. But I would say, just by nature of what we are doing, I think you rightly said 4-year-old, you're trying to train a 4-year-old to go, tell me how the world works. And they have a very limited view of it. So it's almost like what's the right word for it? Social pressure of us trying to give it so much information and asking so many questions. I feel that's where the hallucination comes in my mind. But the part where hallucination becomes even more trickier, and for one reason, I would say, is not allowing someone who's probably junior to go into this and accept the information. Most organizations, so I was part of the top 10 OWASP AI security, the top 10 LLM. I did contribution onto it. One of the conversations we had was, number one thing people spoke about is prompt injection is one way to find out that I can probably take some information out. But in reality, I struggle to make it secure by default. How do I make it say, just give me passwords that you found on the trained data? For whatever reason, in that transcript, someone actually mentioned a secret, which I never took out. I don't know, it could be there, but is there a way for me to sell it exactly that prompt? Hey, by the way, every time someone says password, ignore everything after. I don't know. So hallucination is hard for that reason at the moment. The 2 things people are doing is a proxy that just stops it. The second one people are doing is, even though they're using this for helping the developers, especially the junior developers who are coming in, they're still being told before you put a PR in, or before you put a pull request in, or before you put any submission in, someone still has to review it. Someone who's probably experienced. I could tell it was not secure because I have seen a CloudFormation template before, but for someone who has never seen one, they're like, oh, I guess this is secure because this is Cloud Guardian, and they said they're looking at security. So like that's where you would find that, like that's what made me go, I don't know if I want to release this out on the internet as an agent for App Store to consume. I'd rather just go, okay, I'm going to stop at the point where it's a private link, where people kind of work with it, train the 4EL to be a bit more mature and have a better understanding. But the hope is ChatGPT would keep improving. So sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but like that's kind of what people are doing. Yeah. Awesome.
Any more questions from the audience? Yeah, one more.
One at the back as well.
Hey, Ashish, good talk.
Thank you.
So we have the agent trained on your episodes, which have been 2 years old?
No, as of last week. So all season 4. So all the way up to the last week episode, yes.
Awesome. So what if, 2 things. One, if there is contradictory statements within the episodes, what happens where? And 2, how do you make sure what is out there is standing for the future? For example, TLS1 is no more secure.
Yes.
And you might have said that 3 years back, hey, use TLS1. So how do you take care of that in the times to come?
That's a good request. That sounds like a PR issue right there. Pull request coming in. No, but see, that's the thing, because I definitely don't feel agents, maybe it's a good thing to call out. I don't believe agents are ready to be released as openly as they have called out, as OpenAI has called out, for exactly this reason, because it makes me also question that, yeah, actually, things that we used to do 7 years ago, we don't do that anymore. Like, I don't write Excel, Word, PowerPoint in my CV anymore, because I kind of know it by default. Hopefully, I know it by default. But the same way, but that's best practice now. So if you see a resume now which has Excel, you're like, I don't know when he made the resume last. Like, would have been some time ago. Yeah, so I don't know how it would react. I don't think it can deal with that. It's literally, at least there's so we have a second podcast as well called AI Cybersecurity Podcast. Feel free to follow. So on the AI Cybersecurity Podcast, I was talking to the CISO of Robinhood, which is a financial organization in the US. So he's been researching quite a bit. He's part of the Cloud Security Alliance AI Safety Chair. And him and I were kind of talking about the fact that, the prompt injection part, but also the fact that how do you keep up with the outdated information? Like, yes, you can give it access to internet, like the recent version of ChatGPT has access to internet, but that still doesn't mean it would not hallucinate. That still doesn't mean it's going to verify multiple resources, because at the end of the day, internet is filled with people like me and others just sharing opinion for, this is what I feel is right. And no one ever wrote anything after that. So I guess that's right. To your point, TLS 1.0 is still secure, maybe ChatGPT is thinking, because no one ever wrote a blog or anything about the fact that TLS 1.0 is not secure anymore. So it's definitely a great question. I don't have an answer for it, and I think it's a good pull request as well. I should put in myself only. But no, thanks for that question. There was someone else in the back as well.
Was that? Oh, yeah, one more.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It is actually.
Hi. Thank you for the talk. That's super interesting. And just coming back to what you said about how ChatGPT in general is good at describing things, but struggles a bit more when it comes to the facts. And when you highlight a certain point, how big is the difference between just throwing the same input to the default ChatGPT compared to with Cloud Guardian? And how big is the potential with these custom agents? Does it feel like you can actually improve it quite a lot, or are we going to be limited to that inherent kind of limitation? Yeah.
It is the same, because the first version, when I did not give it any trained data, it actually called out that my information is updated as of April 2023. That was so when I first made this at 1 a.m., I think, it basically did not have any trained data. This was me still thinking, what should I give it as a trained data? And at that point in time, every response kind of had that, this information is as updated as of April 2023, which is what they announced at the dev day as well. But once I gave it trained data, it stopped giving me that prompt. It didn't say anymore April 2023. And I don't know if it's because the last transcript that I gave was from like a week before conversation that we had on Cloud Security Podcast. So maybe there is a point of difference where I'm giving it more information on top of what it already knows. So maybe there is some contradiction only based on the training data. But then again, I've only had less than 12 hours with this, or maybe 14, but I would come back another call, but hopefully that would be helpful. But hopefully this was helpful. Thank you for the question as well.
great. I see another great question asked on the Slido. And the question is about your thoughts on prompt engineering and how important knowing prompt engineering and applying it to make custom GPT. Did you basically use any of your prompt engineering skills?
I didn't actually, so like that's pretty much the only prompt engineering I had to do, basically instructing it to behave a certain way and what do I want it to be, I guess, considered an expert of. But I would see this code really get better when, so for people who use ChatGPT, nowadays you can have custom instructions. Me and Caleb, who's the co-host at that AI cybersecurity podcast, him and I have this thing which is like a advisory board that stands up every time I ask a question. So if I ask a question about marketing, there's a marketing person that stands up. When I say stand up, literally, it would say, oh, we have in the advisory board, we have a marketing person, cybersecurity person, IT person, business person, and they all share their opinion. And then we have a contrarian who would question everything that's been spoken about so far, because there would be a bias in everyone's conversation. I think that would be amazing if I can get to that point where every response that you get is a conversation between a cloud security architect, a developer, an AppSec person, and you kind of have a contrarian as a team lead, you're sitting and just going, okay, I have security architects saying that we should have encryption by default, but my dev people saying this is deep in the network, I don't even know why I have to encrypt this. And then I have the AppSec person saying, we should do a threat model. And then you can make a decision, which is an informed one, to go, okay, I think the next step from here for me is this. That would be amazing. So at the moment, the prompt engineering is literally just what you see on the screen on how the agent needs to be. But once you start adding custom instructions, you can go quite advanced and you can start doing advisory boards for the question that you ask. You would get an expert in that particular field and a contrarian. I mean, you can go further than that. This is what we came up with as we were doing the podcast, but there's a lot more you can do from prompt engineering perspective. But yeah, that's kind of what I came up with. Hopefully that answers the question.
And there was one more question, which is going to be the last question. If you have any more questions, please do approach Ashish during the break. I'm guessing that question came from someone from TikTok team in the audience, because I said, Ashish, have you thought about integrating this with TikTok, which means you put a video on TikTok and then people comment and the only reply.
That would have been fun, but the only TikTok integration I found was TikTok conversion, TikTok lead gen. So maybe they need to create a new service for it. I think it'll be definitely interesting.
It's still on the screen, right?
Yeah. So I did look at it because I was like, I'll come on TikTok. They're social media, so there should be something. But turns out it's more for marketing people. And no offense to marketing people, it's definitely required. I just did not understand what would I convert using TikTok. Currency, maybe? I don't know. Like, I just was not confused. So if there is a TikTok integration, maybe we can make a few TikTok videos on this. It'll be amazing. But
excellent. Let's thank Ashish for an awesome
talk.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a 10-minute break. Please grab more food and drink from the kitchen. Toilets are back where the lifts are. And we'll be here with a second awesome talk on the new OWASP dependency scan, OWASP depscan project.
Oh, you have those. Yes, I got. That's a good event, man.
I'll give you.
Yeah, you have a sticker with that?
Everyone, can you please go back to your seats because we're about to start the second talk. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. We're about to start. Second talk. Take your seats, please. Okay, everyone, we're now ready for a second talk with Prabhu Subramanian joining us. So I was again really surprised that Prabhu is in London because I knew of him from, of course, the awesome project, the CDX Gen. For those of you who don't know, of course, we have the amazing OWASP Cyclone DX standard for software bill of materials. And of course, there is a dependency track application, which allows you to load software bill of materials and then understand how many vulnerabilities you have. And CDX Gem was an amazing app that Prabhu is the person behind it, which actually allows you to create software bill of materials from multiple languages, applications, and build artifacts. Prabhu will talk about this a bit later. But then there's another theme, because obviously Prabhu has a company called UpThread. And within UpThread, he created an open source project, which is called depscan. And this was a dependency scanner. This was a software composition analysis tool. And when I met him, I said, Prabhu, hang on a minute. Why is it in your own GitHub repo? Because people don't know about this awesome project. You should make it an OWASP project. And he did. So, and we're going to learn about this tonight. Thank you, Prabhu, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam, for inviting me. I think it's such a privilege, actually. Like I said, I was building depscan as my personal project. Didn't take it very seriously, and then slowly it started finding some users. And a couple of months ago, it was donated to OWASP. So now it is OWASP depscan. You can call it dep-scan, depscan, capital D, capital S. I'm okay. There's no time to think about a name, so fine. But version 5 upcoming, so that's the key. So I'm going to talk about version 5, not version 4. And yes, I have a consulting company, AppThread. So that's how I'm funding all the open source projects. So we have Atom. Sam mentioned CDX, which is the SBOM tool. Again, CDX was one of my personal hobby project, which is now part of Cyclone DX. I have Blint, a binary linting tool, and depscan. So a few years ago, my idea behind AppThread was to make a highly integrated application security platform. And yeah, obviously, I couldn't find enough funding, enough money, but I did become the chief architect of another startup company called Shift Left. So I spent nearly 4 years building next-gen SAST platform. No bits and pieces about things like program analysis, code analysis, and so on. Spent a lot of time on SAST, and in the end, sometime last year, I realized it's simply not possible to build SAST. It's simply not possible to build a highly accurate SAST without false positives. So I pivoted, started spending more time on supply chain security because I found CDX and depscan becoming popular, and I thought, okay, let's use that program analysis knowledge, that code analysis knowledge, see what we can do with supply chain security, SBOM. I'm so sorry for using SBOM. Even I'm getting tired personally. Sorry about that. But maybe I'll try to avoid it. I'll say full stack inventory, or I'll say, try to come up with some other ways of describing the same thing. So what you are about to see today is exclusive. I've not shown it to many people, maybe 2 or 3 friends. I'm presenting it, but I have another colleague, Caroline, who also contributed a lot. She's in North Carolina. She couldn't be here. We've been doing this for a year now. So this is work of 2 hardworking people handcrafting things, no AI involved. Sorry about that. lot of artisan work, and I want to focus on these 3 areas, and obviously towards the end I will show the depscan project. But I want to start with asking, is open source risky? Like, show of hands, how many people think open source is risk? Okay, okay, and who here thinks open source is not risky? Okay, some supporters, awesome, thank you. And then yes, I would definitely touch upon supply chain security from open source. So we all kind of are understanding that open source is risky, but then why would you use supply chain security tool, or why should you use supply chain security tool from open source, which are risky, right? And then I will touch upon the depscan project. So so that's what we are forced to believe, isn't it? Like I've been doing open source for 10 years, and last few years, even I am getting convinced that open source is risky, right? Like OWASP, every project is open source. So at some point, I don't know whether you guys are seeing it here. There are like 752 million pages on Google about open source risks. Like, that's more than coronavirus, COVID. And then you go to YouTube, top 10 risks open source. Yeah, the first video, Enric, is a security researcher. Maybe he has some right to say open source is risky. He has published like 10 papers about supply chain risk. Okay, so you get like a sticker. But then random YouTubers, right? Like, I can't even pronounce it. gomahamaya.com. Like random YouTubers talk about open source risk. Because that's like yeah, you make money, right? Like I'm sure even on TikTok, if you search for open source risk, like you will find a lot of TikTokers. So that's what is happening, right? Like the more you say, the more you amplify, the more beneficial it is becoming. But honestly, like if you see this section, risks of using open source, the first one is vulnerabilities are public knowledge. Is that a risk? Come on. Yeah. Vulnerabilities are public knowledge is like the greatest strength of open source, right? Like the other day I read that only 20 0 days out of 1024 of iOS has come out. Do you guys feel secure because you don't know 1000 vulnerabilities, iOS vulnerabilities that has not come out? Like, whereas Android, it's impossible to hide a 0 day because thousands of people are reviewing it. It's like not possible. It'll just come out, right? Like you go through most of these risks, you are like, they can be generalized to any source code. Like I did a SaaS company. I know how many bugs exist in commercial code. So open source code, in fact, is actually more secure, more risk-free than commercial code. I can promise you that, right? So all of these guys are like, yeah, they have an agenda. They have, it's a system, right? We have to work together to kind of change it. We have to make things secure by default. And you don't make things secure by default by scaring people away, but yeah, you collaborate, like OWASP Foundation, for example, amazing foundation, purpose-built for making the whole world of software secure, right? So yeah, so I have a different view that open source is not more riskier than commercial. And what we have to understand is open source publishers, right? Like artisans like myself, we try to build tools. We might focus on something, like it's an art, right? Like creating a tool like depscan or CDXGen is an art. Few years ago, when I tried to build the tool, there was no book on how to build an SBOM. There was no ChatGPT. I couldn't have asked. Maybe this year I could have asked, hey, build depscan for me. But there was no book, right? You're learning. You're trying to build. And what does happen is the same tool, same work of artisans gets sold in shops. People may not go to artisan market, but they might buy the same product from a shop and they might feel happy. Same way, the number of commercial companies that bundle dependency track, OS, Zap, CDXGen, people will say open source is bad. The commercial companies will also market that open source is risky, but then they are actually bundling open source tools and people will happily pay for it. Rather than paying the artisans directly. So which is something we need to think about. We need to look at the big picture, not look at just the marketing brochures and so on. I fortunately was able to make the transition. So I was like an artist, I was like creator, and then I was able to form a consulting company to fund the open source project, which not many artisans would do. So the projects will get archived, will exist, but cannot be constantly improved. Whereas I was fortunate enough to keep funding these projects for over 5 years now, so which is good. And transitioning from a project that's fully self-funded to something that's part of a foundation, so you have like a larger community, fantastic people to talk to, get some feedback, and so on. And I'm really looking forward for the questions and the feedback, because that is how I think these open source tools we can keep improving. We can keep, trying to solve a problem. Why security from open source? Yes. You could go buy security from commercial companies, but then you're getting locked into a system. It's very hard to take your data out, right? And it's analogous to subscription medicine. Okay, you're not going to get a cure. You are going to get that medicine packaged every month, so you will have some remedy, some temporary relief. Whereas open source, there is no lock-in. I don't actually care. Whether you continue to use depscan for 5 years, 10 years, I would love if you are a very long-term user, but that's not my problem. And also, depscan, CDXGen, they all follow Cyclone DX, right? Like everything you will see today are built on top of Cyclone DX SBOM, right? The specification is open source, the tool is open source. Even if you do not like depscan, but like Cyclone DX, you can still build your own workflows, tooling, processes around it. No lock-in. And we are, because the whole world is biased against open source, we are actually working very hard to show that we are not a risk. So which means we are better suited to safeguard your company against open source risks, right? So yeah, I can go on. And I honestly believe that the days of commercial supply chain security is over, as we know it, because open source, yes, we are going to show you, at least in the coming months, amazing features from dependency track, dependency check, depscan. I don't know why OWASP has 3 dependency products, but let's go with that. But maybe more, isn't it? That is another thing we have to think about. But yeah, we are coming up with high quality capabilities for free open source that we will make a statement to the enterprises as to what is it they're doing. So depscan. Even I forgot depscan, honestly. So it is built to forget, right? I don't want depscan to block your PRs. I don't want depscan to raise 100 pull requests with the depscan logo saying this pull request was blocked by depscan, or this single CVE requires a single patch, and here is a pull request. I don't like that model. That's not the correct way to build any tool, let alone SCA tool, right? It used to be my personal tool till 2018 because I didn't like any of the tools out there. I was doing a lot of open source, and I felt like all these bots and things like that were stopping me from doing my work. And I was like, okay, I'm going to build my own tool. I'm not going to use any of these tools. And I started using this tool to get consulting projects. I think we have one of my first customer here from years ago. Yeah, I was showing depscan to get the credibility because, Prabhu, application security, what does it know? I show depscan, all these things, and then and slowly depscan started getting bundled into a bunch of ASPM tools. Okay, I now have so white labeling, bundling. I have a few clients who actually bundle depscan and then they show it as their own. And sometimes they actually go and say open source is risky again, just like. And from 2022, I had this Eureka moment. I'm like, yeah, let's give depscan to everybody. Let's get more downloads. I think I now have 400 downloads, which is like awesome. So from 2023, it's now an OWASP project. And built to forget, next generation analysis. The shift left experience, SAST experience taught me a thing or two about how we can do better. So I will show some next generation analysis, not AI analysis. And depscan is free, open source, complete privacy. The whole thing can work in air-gapped environment, requires no internet connectivity. All of the analysis are performed in the CI/CD system. No application, no SBOM ever leaves your system, right? There's no talking to OSV, there's no talking to deps.dev, there's just nothing going out, like complete private. Which it turns out, even dependency track does send some data out to OSV and so on. So this is the only dependency scanning product in open source that's 100% private. Okay, and I'm going to start with demo, and then happy to take questions. Like we can make it interactive. I can go deeper if you want to go like very technical, deeper. Yes, happy to do that, or broader philosophical. Yes, and so. Okay, so so I just ran depscan. It does take a couple of minutes. So what I can do is I can show some of the previous runs. I did run it earlier today, so I don't want to waste 2 minutes of your time. And depscan is packaged as a... Can you make the phone larger? Let me try to... Any better? Yeah. Okay. So depscan is a Python package, but we bundle it as container image and so on. So we have single application executables, container image. It's one command, depscan, with some arguments. So this is the output for a Java project. It's a vulnerable Java application OWASP project seeded with vulnerabilities. And these are real data, okay? I'm not mocking or anything. And let's just start showing some unique bits that only depscan can do. To start with, depscan can prove whether the vulnerability is both reachable and exploitable. There is no trickery. This is solid reachability analysis, exploitability analysis, completely private, open source, okay? depscan knows precise usage in how many places the given library is used. Okay, you can see that here it is reachable, but it's not exploitable. So it can do all the computation. Let me keep going. So we have all these data, and there are multiple ways to run depscan. So what I'm showing here is the complete verbose mode, so that you are starting to trust the tool, right? Okay, Prabhu's tool depscan, does it work? Is it legit? Yeah, you can run it in verbose mode, so it's plotting all the tables, explaining everything. But then, yes, you can just turn off all of that. You can run it in quiet mode, and I promise you, it will not block your PR unless it legitimately thinks that there is a reachable, exploitable vulnerability in your application, okay? So after showing all of the data, depscan can prioritize the results. So here is an example for this project where depscan says, here are the 4 or 5 packages that needs to be updated. And it's giving the reason, okay, reachable S, and so on. It also has the fixed version. Then it says you can remediate up to 140 vulnerabilities by updating the package and so on. So most people, like I said, this is a sample vulnerable application. So it has a lot of vulnerable packages and so on. I will show a real application for a new customer. We just signed up yesterday, okay? And we'll see how their data looks like. And then, yeah, I can, if there are any questions, maybe if there are questions I can answer, I can show some technical bits and so on. Okay, so we so far saw prioritization using reachability and exploitability analysis. But what if there are no vulnerabilities? What if you want to be proactive, right? Like imagine somebody building a time machine and telling Equifax that, hey, you need to pay attention to Struts vulnerability. Struts is the word you need to know because if there is any vulnerability, you will be exploited. depscan can do that. depscan can find top reachable packages, even without vulnerabilities. Okay, so you can be proactive for the first time. You can know, you can track, and it even tells you that you can set up alerts and notifications to monitor these packages because there will be, in the S form, there'll be hundreds of packages, right? Like you have to know, okay, which one should I start tracking, right? And we can do this a lot. I'll explain how we can improve this next year, and obviously, I'll seek feedback. So we are the first tool. In fact, I learned a thing or two about how commercial companies do it and so on, right? And I even have a slide explaining the various styles of reachability analysis. The model we went with CDaction and depscan is computing the reachability first and then checking for vulnerabilities. So it adds a bit of time, but it makes the whole journey more proactive. Whereas the approach most commercial companies have done is to only show reachable flows that also have vulnerabilities. So it is entirely just prioritization, okay? Proactiveness versus prioritization. Like I said, we want to make the whole thing secure, not have monthly subscription and so on. And depscan is trying to prove the reachable flows. Okay, this is again very important, right? You can technically build a SaaS tool or any analysis tool by just grepping for keywords. I think there is a very popular company that is actually doing that. And then you ask that tool, okay, prove it to me, explain it to me why you think this is a vulnerability. I don't know, I just found these keywords, right? Whereas depscan is an advanced tool that can explain itself. Okay, like I said, This is not released. When it goes live, you can run depscan against any application. We aim to make it work out of the box. Legitimate advice, legitimate thing, but not AI, okay? To start with, yeah, I'll go through all these things, but you can see that not only depscan is plotting the flow, but it is also tagging it with the libraries, the packages, and it is also assigning some tags as to what that method does. So we have implemented like a simplistic auto tagging mechanism, again, not AI, to tag code. Okay, so in fact, the whole reachability analysis we are performing based on tagging. So let's look at another example. So here, the code is tagging, and it's spotting something interesting. It's spotting a method that is a potential mitigation. So it is even saying, check if the mitigation used in this flow is valid and appropriate. So at this point, depscan doesn't know whether this is a false positive or not. So it knows there is a reachable flow. It knows the input can be used to reach two packages, fast.json and embed core, but it doesn't know whether there is mitigation involved. So it is possible to now use some configuration files to tell depscan which method patterns are safe, can be trusted, and so on. So we will introduce this kind of remediation workflow to train your own depscan to recognize your own coding stuff. And lastly, it gives you some ideas. It says to improve the security posture, implement a common validation middleware, because it knows that not every flow has been validated, sanitized. So it's giving an advice. Any question? Any?
Grab a microphone. Yeah.
Hi. You previously mentioned that it's all private and you don't do any call to the internet. How often do you update the database? So to find the vulnerabilities.
So the vulnerability database gets downloaded first. So what we do is we have a app threat vulnerability DB project. That has the vulnerabilities. So very first run, depscan will download this database, and then all the checks will be performed locally. And what we do is we build this database every 8 hours or so. But what we encourage customers, users, is to fork this project, copy this project, and build it themselves. So they don't even have to use the version we are building.
Okay, so then to stay more up to date with that, I need to follow the latest version, right? To be more secure in this case.
Correct. You can keep building it. Like you can. This uses GitHub Actions workflow to build it. It takes like 11 minutes. So yeah, you have a workflow, and the whole database is a single file, and you can point depscan at the VDB home directory containing this file, and that'll be used for vulnerabilities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and what this basically project does is it gets all the vulnerabilities from the upstream projects. So here is the full list of upstream we support. Yeah, 100% private.
Wonderful. More questions? Yeah, there's a question.
Can you go a little bit in depth on the reachability analysis, and how do you do reachability analysis offline, and what kind of file do you analyze to do the reachability analysis? Do you call trace, or what do you do for reachability?
Okay, I have a slide I will explain, but we do all of these statically. There's no tracing, there's nothing involved. It takes a couple of minutes. So if I show this example project on GitHub, yeah, we aim for 2 to 5 minutes with full pack, full reachability, everything. Whereas the normal vulnerability analysis will usually take only seconds.
And is first dependencies, or you do the full tree analysis and full stack trace? So if you call a library and a library call a library and a library call a library? Do you do first level dependencies or you go all the way down?
Okay, how many levels of reachability we do and so on. It's an interesting question. We are currently looking at only the direct dependencies. So the first level, the full tree is in the SBOM file. Like when CDXGen generates the SBOM, it has a lot of information. It has the full dependency tree, it has evidences, everything. But from a prioritization perspective, we only focus on directly reachable libraries.
Thank you.
Another question?
Yeah, I'm quite curious about the reachability part, actually. So if you have a slide, I'll let you present, and then I'll see if it answers most of them. So you know when Log4Shell came out, most of the people impacted were impacted from indirect dependencies because Log4j is everywhere. And,
yes.
So how would you kind of be sure that your users are not ignoring the not reachable ones because they could ignore exploitable vulnerabilities?
That's right. So you can see Log4j API, it says yes. So it was a common weakness in every tool. Okay, so when Log4j came out, firstly I can go along. So when Log4j came out, the person filed the vulnerability against Log4j implementation packages, okay, IMPL packages. And then what they found was, because the quality of SBOM tools at the time were so low, none of them even had the IMPL packages. So nobody actually saw the Log4Shell vulnerability in any SCA tool. So GitHub, in their right wisdom, misfiled against the API package, which is the only package most SBOM tools reported. So yeah, we had to do that thing. And because I had that knowledge, with depscan, we do two things. There is a fallback mode where even runtime dependencies, as long as there is a occurrence usage, it would be considered reachable, runtime packages. Okay, I can even show the comment on depscan where it's saying, let's fall back here. The second thing is we use the Java native class loader. So what we do is, for Java project, the application has to be compiled first, not built, compiled. Anyway, the CycloneDX Maven plugin requires the application to be compiled. So the good thing about Java is when you compile, all the jar files get downloaded. So they are there. So what then depscan via the Atom project does is it uses the Java class loader to load all the jar files. So the logging, log4j, all the libraries would get loaded in the class loaders. We then ask the class loader, okay, give me all the classes you have just loaded. And then we get the classes, and then we map it back to the SBOM. That's how we are saying, okay, these packages are reachable because they got loaded and so on. So the approach, I think. Andrew.
Any more questions on this part of the demo?
Oh, okay.
No? Okay, I think we can continue.
Continue, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about analysis, which is the big thing. Let's see if I can zoom it a bit so I can see. Okay, so this is like program analysis 101, code analysis 101. I actually offer a course to university students on this topic. So the fundamental thing is like spell checker versus grammar checker, right? Like we are used to spell checking on Microsoft Word, very horrible, right? And then the next generation grammar checkers are coming, and then there's a lot of innovations happening in that space. A similar journey is happening in program analysis phase, okay? So we have syntactic structures like abstract syntax tree, which is what all the linting tools use, like ESLint or formatting tools. Sonar Cube. All these are linting tools. They operate on syntax trees. And one enhancement we can do with this basic structure is to start tracking what is called as control flows. If conditions, for loops, while loops. So you are also knowing that some syntactic nodes are only applicable in certain cases. So you have some knowledge on what we are doing. So we can have some false positive tuning, right? Like instead of saying, look, you are invoking with shell equal to true, you can say, oh, you are invoking with only this specific condition, and so on. Some improvement we can do, and most grepping tool operate in this area, right? And the kind of understanding you can get from a tool perspective is you can say, okay, this is some Java application, or this is a JavaScript application. You don't know, you can't understand anything beyond that from just the syntax. Okay, we have to start going deeper into the semantics. We have to start going deeper into the purpose and so on, right? So then the next enhancement we can do is start identifying program dependency, which is, okay, what are all the libraries this program or application is dependent on? And we now have SBOM tools like CDXGen. So computing that has become very easy, right? So you get the tool to give you that list, and then while parsing the application, you can check, and then you can find out which of these are dependencies, and then which of these are direct dependencies, indirect dependencies, transitive, and so on, right? And with this knowledge, we can build what is called as data dependency graph, which is, okay, I know these are the inputs to my application, and out of these inputs, these could be controlled by a user. And then you can start tracking the flow of data. So you can start doing some computation out of it. This is where you would find some new startups, upstarts, offering reachability analysis operate. Very, very, very precise. Once you have both the program dependency and data dependency, the kind of reachable flows you can compute is very precise, very, very nice. There is one major downside here, which is what is called as database, a symbols database. So while I answered the gentleman's question by saying, oh, we download the vulnerability database, but there's another database that every commercial company use, which is the symbols database. What does it have? Just the class names, method names of all libraries. Somebody has to parse all of Maven library, npm, NuGet. So they know all of the modules, all of the things. So when they see that symbol, they can then go and map it back to the package. And then they can understand what this package does. Is it a SQL library? Is it a web framework? What does it do? Okay, so we need that database. If you have the database, yes, you can do, you can have a very highly performant product, very precise. And unfortunately, CDXGen depscan doesn't have a database. We cannot produce, even with OWASP money, a free database for the whole world that gets downloaded and used, because that database will be significant. We can't host it on GitHub. There's no money, there's no budget. So last year, honestly, we couldn't do this. It took us a whole year to crack this. And the way we have solved it is with three things. We invented type inference. So earlier this year, I went to Cape Town. So I met a young chap, David, a PhD student from Stellenbosch University, and he was working on a machine learning paper to predict the type. Okay, so the principle behind this innovation is, given a structure, program structure, not the syntax, like the structure, he would then predict what must be the type that has this structure and so on. And I got very fascinated. I was like, okay, this will make a great thing in the supply chain space. So we worked together. We have produced an open source, the first type inference engine that can work for both static and dynamic languages, typed and untyped versions. So Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, and in Python, typed Python, untyped Python, we can still predict the type, even without the symbols database, just by the structure analysis. Then once we predict the type, we are also able to predict the package that must have provided the type because we have the SBOM. So this is like the analogy I use is, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck. You don't need a database to tell you it is a duck. So because CDXGen is producing such a detailed description of the component it sees, we are able to easily predict the package. So we call it as package inference. And then lastly, after predicting it, we are able to tag, because this package is this library which also has these, it must be doing this. And the auto tagging is actually can be improved. It is working reliably. That's why we are able to show it, and we are able to, we can put it live. Nobody will laugh at us, okay? But next year, we have big ambition to implement semantic tagging. Semantic tagging is usually applicable for custom code where we don't know what the code is. There's no equivalent open source code. So we will try to predict what that custom code must be doing. So we don't have to ask the user, hey, is this a validation function? Is this a sanitization function? Because we will know that it is doing what it is supposed to do. And then last thing is the current state of art reachability is inter-package, but not inter-service. So I think Ashish spoke about how we have a lot of microservices nowadays, orchestrated and so on, right? So while we are able to track the flow per service, we are not able to track it across the services. So if we expose depscan to a mono repo containing tens of services and so on, we need more work to be done to stitch the flows together to prove that this flow starts from microservice A, traverses all of it. But we are more confident open source people will do it first, not commercial people. Okay. So yeah, so a couple of areas we can improve. And why are we doing all these things? We can start answering these questions. What does this application do? Why, when, and how the libraries are used, and how can it be improved? I'm personally so tired of false positives in SAST. I don't want the SCA tools to bombard you with false positives. So we are spending a lot of time to implement this explainability into the tool itself. So the tool, when it tells you it is reachable, it knows itself that it is reachable, not made up and so on. Any questions here? Let me take a pause. And
yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's a question.
Just a quick one. Why are you trying so hard to do this offline? You have a lot more intelligence in the context. So if you correlate, like the example you made, microservice, like you might have two or three pieces of code that runs in a microservice and two others in another microservice. In an ASPM world, you know which application actually bundle all of these up and which piece of code actually call this function.
Okay.
Why not using that knowledge?
So so ASPM has the benefit of collecting the data from various sources, and then they have it in the centralized place. Yeah, I was working on a project called ThreadDB briefly, which is like a graph database to store all of this data, and so on. So that is one approach, very interesting. I think we have to start exploring. Like I said, I don't want to take the dependency track route, which is step one, set up a Postgres database, and then you lose 100% of open source users. So we want to make it completely database-less, but we need to, I think, brainstorm. But very nice idea. We can catch up. We can brainstorm.
That's how we do it.
Yeah. One more question.
Yeah, just in the previous demo, you showed that one vulnerability was reachable and exploitable. Could you detail more how do you make one and the other assumption? Like, you talked more about the reachability part. How would you get to the exploitable part?
Known exploits. So if the same vulnerability also has known exploits, it fail safes to exploitable. depscan is the only product, probably the only product that will not use EPSs. Okay, I don't believe in EPSs. So, but I have a research student who is trying to implement exploitability analysis with this data. So, so AI machine learning, the key thing to do all these advanced things is the data, not the model, right? Like SBOM tools last year were not as precise as the tools this year, right? So, which is one of the reasons why I spent a lot of time improving the tools, because I was like, there's no way you can do AI with last generation tools, right? But now, with the new generation tools, these sort of precise analysis, Cyclone DX format, you can start doing advanced analysis. So we are confident that we will do a proper exploitability analysis that doesn't look at phrases, description text, proper code.
Yeah, I think there's a question or comment on EPSS from Francesco, right?
Yeah, I'm one of the creator of EPSS. So why don't you believe in EPSS?
Yeah, I will show you.
EPSS has one good part and one bad part. Like, I know why you don't like the pure threat intelligence analysis, and I've been discussing this deeply with Steve Springlet. But there is the secondary part that is actually looking at exploitability analysis of actually verified exploit, plus if you see it in the wild. Now, specific CV like Log4j can be traced in the wild. Other, like, it can hallucinate and can actually direct to the wrong path. But if you look at the white paper that we put together for EPSS, that's just 50% of the data that we use in the ML model. The other 50% is actually the type of vendors, the exploitability verified, the actual verification. We have a bunch of other data that we actually publish as Phoenix on exploitability analysis. But plus you have CISAC that is actually manually configured. You can use a lot of that data to actually fast track that information. You don't actually have to use your own knowledge to actually derive if something is exploitable.
Yes, but I'm still not convinced. So let me try. Let's see if we can beat EPSS. That'd be so cool, isn't it?
Any more questions on this part of the presentation? No. Okay, let's move on.
Move on. Okay, so this slide, I can go deeper into technical bits, or I can keep basic, up to you guys. So reachability analysis, so we aim for constant time performance, which is when you run depscan, and if it takes, say, 2 minutes, every subsequent run will only take 2 minutes. So what it means is it is non-deterministic. So we do throw away some flows that are too hard to compute, because we're trying to do all these statically, right? We don't have a runtime tracer. We don't have anything else. So if we start tracking a flow of package, and then like it's taking a lot of time, like I think it's currently 30 seconds per flow or something. So if computing a flow takes more than 30 seconds, we throw away that, okay? But I do have examples of complex flows that can be solved within that time period. So we are able to capture a lot of flows, but like I said, we aspire for constant time performance. So what this means is, in fact, that's what we should do anyway across any product. We should use this for prioritization, not as like a proof or single source of truth. Okay, so we cannot, for example, discard vulnerabilities that do not have the reachable tag. Okay, so exercise caution. So the one that has the reachable tags, the tool definitely knows they are reachable, but the one without, we don't know actually. And like I said, we are doing this with or without libraries to make things proactive. Okay, and when it comes to reachability analysis, everybody says reachability analysis, but then let's start understanding some academic terms so you can ask your vendor, okay, tell me what kind of reachability analysis they do, right? And then they're like, oh my God. So to start with, forward reachability analysis. What is forward reachability? You find all the entry points to your applications, okay, called sources. So web applications, okay, the HTTP routes, inputs. So from the sources, you try to follow till you reach a sink. A sink could be an external library, a database, or a HTTP call, and so on. So this is forward reachability analysis, okay? To do forward reachability analysis, you first have to know the entry points. So what is an entry point? For a Spring application, if it has specific annotations, those are called entry points. Or for an Express application, if the file is in the app.use method or app.root method, it's an entry point, right? So you need to build some logic into the tools, which we have done for many frameworks across applications, because we are an open source project, right? We have to work for every single project in the world, right? So we have put some of those intelligence, and then the rest we try to tag and guess as we go. Forward reachability may not work in all cases. For example, libraries, okay? Apache Common Validations Library, or like your organization might have a library which is only making calls out, like it doesn't have an entry point, doesn't have a root, it doesn't have anything, right? So in these cases, we need to do reverse reachability analysis, which is you start from the sink and try to identify all the possible sources. It takes ages with depscan. So with reverse reachability, the average time is around 15 minutes. Sometimes it takes hours, okay? So tough luck, it's very difficult to do that without that source's knowledge. Computing from sync back to all possible sources, it's an exponential computation. Maybe there could be some shortcuts that we can. And the last kind of reachability is intermodular reachability across packages. So if I show an example for, so let's see if I have something here. Okay, this one, yeah. So here is an example of a flow where there are so many packages participating. And probably the only implementation that can actually track every single package participating in a single flow. Again, these things, I mean, people will see our code, and then, I mean, this is exactly what we want to do, right? Like, we want to spread this knowledge. I actually offer courses to teach people how to do code analysis and so on. And it's absolutely fine if commercial products start implementing such advanced techniques. And if they give us a credit, that's awesome, isn't it? So 3 kinds of analysis. Anybody wants to see the temporary artifacts, the technical bits, how the analysis, okay, a lot of users. Awesome. So, so if I look at the files in this project, JavaSec code project, okay? So let me do a, so the first thing is app.atom. So, sure. Yeah. So what we first try to do is we we try to summarize and create an intermediate representation of the application. Okay, the problem with performing reachability analysis is, or any static analysis, is if you have an application with 100,000 lines of code, and then you have 100 libraries which has thousands of imports, you need to take each line and then check all these import statements. So that's a bigger problem. So first what we do is summarize the application and create a small intermediate representation, okay? So just the import statements, just the method names, parameter names, very, very limited information, which we call the Atom. So Atom is both an open source project and a specification to create intermediate representation for multiple languages, okay? The list of languages are here. Atom is built using Scala language because of the underlying downstream tool we use is built in Scala, so we are keeping it consistent. Most of these analysis can be performed at raw source code level, but we do need the compilation to solve the package problem we have, and so on. Okay, so so the journey we kind of imagine is people will start with CDXGen project, which is SBOM, okay, and they would work with dependency track, and then over time they'll be like, okay, I have the SBOM, but I need to do more detailed analysis. Maybe they can start with depscan. They will use depscan and they will find that depscan is very opinionated. It's doing things in a certain way, like why is it not doing APSs? Why is it not doing other things? And then we are hoping that over time, people will then start using Atom. And they will go low level, start doing this analysis themselves without relying on a project like depscan to do it for them, okay? So that is, that's a more quick introduction to Atom. There's like a lot of things we can speak. Atom is based on the PhD paper from David, who generously agreed to make things open source, and then all of our implementation are open source Apache 2 license. So Atom is, we're using protobuf format. So it is like a packed protobuf binary. Okay, and if you have a protobuf client, so I have another project called Chennai, not AI, to inspect the Atom files. Okay, I am not going to waste your time today. But Chennai is an amazing project. I would love to present at some point once it's ready. Maybe at the pub I can show Chennai. Chennai allows you to work on the Atom file, the raw data. You can do advanced things. But the information in an Atom file is still too much. So if you see, for example, Atom file is 3.8 meg, whereas the reachables file is like 431 meg usages file. So to do reachability analysis, we again need a much more smaller set of data. So this is where we call it a slicing, okay? So program slicing is a technique to extract only a small layer of information. So we use the same terminology. So if you look at the reachables slices.json, it's a dead symbol JSON file. What it has is flows, okay? And all of these identifiers are mapped exactly to CycloneDX evidence format. So we don't have any lock-in. And what it says is, okay, look, this is the method parameter input. And then the type, if you know it, the method names, signature, file names, line number, and some automatic tagging. So we have these flows, and then we have pearls. So if you see, so in this case, there is a flow, but there's no package involved. So we exclude that, whereas if you keep looking for flows with some package, we know that. So because depscan is an SCA tool, it is only interested in those reachable flows that could create problems with supply chain. But the tool computes all possible flows with or without packages. So entirely custom code-based stuff and so on. So we have that information. Maybe somebody could make use of it to do something much more interesting and so on. So this format is much simpler to work with. So you can consume this file in a JavaScript package or a Python package. You don't have to know anything about program analysis and so on. So this was one of the innovation we added, a static slicer that can slice a complex program and extract only a small set of information. The second style of slicing we do is called as usages slicing. So what we do is traditionally usages are based on line numbers occurrence, right? So I see this package or this import statement in this line number. But what we found is that kind of usage analysis again led to false positives, because aliasing is one thing. For example, false negatives. So you could import log4j as Prabhu's logging library, which means you need to start tracking Prabhu's logging library, not log4j. Yeah, you could alias a method, you could alias a single variable or the whole module. There is a lot of things going on. Or what you can do is you can import the method, but instead of invoking it, you're just passing it as a function pointer or as a reference to downstream code. So which means at the point of occurrence, there is actually no vulnerability, but the vulnerability occurs when somebody tries to execute this reference and so on. So to cut the long story short, we categorize the usages into 4 types. Where the usages based on the target object, where that library is the target, or it's merely used as a definition to create a derivation. And then we are also tracking the invoked calls, which is all the calls made from that library, and all the calls where the library itself is an argument. So we are categorizing the occurrence into 4 different things, which is required to prove that a given import statement is indeed reachable because it's being invoked and so on. So these are a couple of slices. We also have the data flow slice, which is the reverse reachability analysis. And because we have a consistent format, if you look at the same thing for a TypeScript project, it'll be similar. Once you know the structure, you can easily implement the analysis for a lot of languages. Which is why when depscan v5 will come out, it will support 4 languages, whereas commercial companies usually do Agile, which is like 1 language first, and so on. Fascinating stuff. Is it enough? Should I go in much more detail or any questions?
I think we're short of time.
Short of time, okay.
Back to the slides and ask more questions in the pub.
And yeah, thank you. I think that actually concludes. So this is the repo. The master branch is ready. It is working, but we still have not launched it. We're doing some more testing. I would love to get C++ in, but it's going to be fingers crossed. And we are trying to improve the messaging where the bill of materials also includes information about containers. Nobody asked. So if the application were wrapped inside a container, then the reachability definition changes. So I have a small project investigating whether that can be solved, part of V5. If not, yeah, it'll come later next year. But you can follow us. depscan, completely free to use. Pip install OS depscan. And the customer we signed up yesterday is dependency track project. Okay, so earlier this week, dependency track had an alert for this Jackson data bind, this CVE, with a famous 4-letter commercial company. Everybody got notified, Steve got notified, everybody were panicking. And then they did all the triaging, and then they concluded that it is not exploitable. And I was like, let's try depscan. This is the analysis from depscan. No package requires immediate attention. And it even says all the reachable flows, and it even says there's no reachable flow for that CVE. So yeah, dependency track is our first user.
Fantastic. Okay, let's thank Prabhu one more time.